I having pixelation problems? Okay. We're here. Let me turn off the music. Video's interrupting me listening to music today. No, just kidding. I'm here for you. Real Deal is back. I'm going to give you yet another update. As you can see from the title, it says something. I don't have it in front of me. Something about, Townsend lawsuit liability insurance coverage is the name of this video. And that's because I told you the other day that I had done a public records request for the copy. I wanted a copy of the Townsend's liability insurance policy. And I got that. It's got a couple hundred pages there, over 200 pages. I'm not going to share the entire thing with you. We'll be sleeping before long. Although it's a pretty interesting document. You could probably get it. You do a quick PRR with the town clerk, and he's got it ready to go. So he can send it to everybody that wants it within moments. So no waiting for the 10 days and then appealing and all that stuff, which I didn't have to do this time. I actually got it pretty quick, actually. That was pretty cool. They probably had it out looking at it. A lot going on with liability in this town lately. So this is a pretty simple. I have learned something quickly. I understand now why, or some little details about this lawsuit now. After reading the liability policy, I went through every page. And it's if you have car insurance or homeowners insurance policies, you can read the whole thing pretty quickly. You just don't read it. You just, what am I looking for? You know what you got there. You don't read every single word like you're reading a novel. You'd never finish and you'd be sound asleep. But I wanted to look up what our coverage was, but I wanted to find out if there were any, consequences if the Board of Selectmen doesn't know what they're doing, and if they drag their feet pulling in the liability insurance people. And I mean, I can't say it enough times that they need to be on the stick for this. And get, if they haven't called them, oh gods, what's wrong with you? I think they must have. I can't imagine that they haven't talked to the insurance company. At least Nelson, our town administrator, should have. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm worried about that, but hopefully I'm just over the top. Sometimes I overreact, and I'm hoping that's the case here. But the insurance policy, it's right at the end, close to the end. It says if you get served with a suit, contact us as soon as possible. That's one place. It doesn't say on that particular spot. It doesn't say how many days you have. There is another spot where it says 60. They have 60 days. I think that's too long. I think that's negligent. If they wait that long, they've already sunk the battleship already. Did you ever play that game? I used to love that game. I haven't played it in a long time. I loved it when I was a kid. Anyway, there's also some electronic versions, but let's not go off onto games. Everything's a game. Life is a game. Government's a game. So the selectmen need to reel it in. Hopefully they have. They're meeting tomorrow. And in executive, they're going to have in that meeting, it's a lengthy meeting, but at the end of the meeting, they're going to have an executive session to talk about this liability. We will never know the content of that meeting. That will never be fully released, I don't believe, because sometimes things go into executive session. It's a black hole, and that's okay. They need to do that. They need to have the opportunity to just sit there and make no sense and talk to each other and come up with a hopefully sensible response. Most likely, Adam Costa, our regular town attorney, will be attending just to help guide them through the things I've been trying to guide them through. But they need a real lawyer to do it, not me. And he'll probably be on Zoom because the increased rates for town council have gone up. And he's not going to be the attorney that represents us in this lawsuit. It will be the insurance company's lawyers. Trust me. And probably a clerk can tell them. A brand new clerk, first day on the job, could tell these people, settle. Just settle. We're going to settle. Yeah. But I found out, the lawsuit, RFS is the company that's suing the town. They are the losing bidder on the contract to build a portion of the water treatment facility that Gary Shepard won the the contract and the part of this whole problem. So they're suing us for an interesting number, was $1 million. I said, okay. I figured it would be much more than that. It's got to be damages, it's this, that, and the next thing. And I decided, I made my own judgment that, okay, probably the original, it was it just over 4 million? The total awarded contract was just over 4 million total. There were two sections of the bid. The first one was 1.4 or 1.7, I think. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. Sorry if I'm wrong. Nobody take my head off. But and where they lost the bid, I was thinking, trying to rationalize the whole thing, which doesn't always get you the right answer. That I figured, all right, $1 million, they're probably being more than reasonable. That maybe that's what they lost. They would have, their employees, their whole team, they put a lot of work in. When you're putting in a bid on these kind of projects, it takes a lot of work. So a lot of people's hours were put together to put the documents together that they needed to do for the bid, and the time to get all the information and put it together, and then what they would have made in any profits. I, asking for $1 million, I thought was quite kind. Like, why only 1 million? But reading more into civil lawsuits, my understanding is there's some add-ons, that some damages of some sort, but I don't know exactly. But so I figured, okay, maybe there's reasonableness, and $1 million, okay, that's I still, that's, why so little? Why not go for everything? 10 million, I don't know. Not that I would really want that, because I'm a taxpayer here. I don't want any risk of this having to go to my pocket. I'm also a water taker. In other words, I'm on town water. So if this impacts the water bills, I'm going to be pretty upset too. I'm going to be digging in my backyard to build a well, even though it's not. I understand. I threatened to get a well a few years ago because I was so pissed off about the water, not the billing. I've never had a complaint about my water bill. I know other people do, but it's like my biggest bill was $200, and it's due this month. It's been half that, but it's a 3 month. I ran the hose a bit during the drought we had all summer. I didn't use it enough, but that's another story. So I have no complaints about my water bill. I really don't. But just because I was having problems with pressure, and I was mad. So I'm going to build a well. And I was informed, like, they can't just take a idle threat like that and leave it alone, thinking that, well, she's not going to do it anyways. Leave her alone. Let her vent. Nope. I got to push my buttons. So they said it's illegal for you to build a well. If you're on town water, you cannot go off. You can't build a well and go off town water. You don't have that. Once you're in, you're in. Oh, and there's some law or something. It's like, well, I wasn't really going to do that anyway. I mean, I probably would look into it if I really had serious problems. But anyways, but I'm here to talk about the lawsuit, not my problems with water. We could be here all day on that. The lawsuit, they're suing us for $1 million. Well, I said at the beginning of this, we're talking about the liability insurance. Well, guess how much coverage we have? Guess. Oh, $1 million? You're right. Let me pull up. I am going to pull up, if I can. Well, that stinks. That's not what I want. Is this the one I want? I swear there's another one. Oh, is this it? That's it. That's the one I want. I didn't want to block it from you. Okay, if you can see this, I'm going to look over my cheat sheet over here so I could see it better. Getting old, my eyes need a bigger view of this. So if you look down, this is the section of the liability insurance that covers public officials and management liability coverage part declarations. The coverage part provides claims made coverage. Loss adjustment expenses are included in the deductible. Now we have the aggregate limit is 3 million, which means aggregate means combined. So you have multiple charges, multiple lawsuits would be you get 3 million if you have multiple offenses. But for each wrongful act, which this is a wrongful act by town officials. What's the wrongful act? You say bidding negligence at the very least, but bidding violations of the law and really bad. Anyway, don't get me going. I've already done that video. $1 million for each wrongful act or offense. And I'm going to vent a little bit because why is this under public officials and management liability coverage? Because that's where the F up is, that they should have known better. That not only did the water superintendent and the fire chief, I swear, I mean, I have no evidence. We're not going to trial. I mean, no, I'm sorry. We might go to trial. I hope we don't. We need to settle. Again, we need to settle, people. But if we do go to trial, it's going to be ugly. But some of the documents that will get posted will be very embarrassing for everybody. It always is. But if the wrongful act extends beyond what Gary and David did, it's oversight. It's partially and very importantly oversight. The town administrator is usually the chief procurement officer in this town. I believe it was then and it is now. And the oversight required for these things should have picked up on the legal problems going on. There should have been more supervision on this contract. Although when I do think back, I'd have to go back. I may do that. I don't want to. Something happened here. Okay. I think we're still, geez, my whole screen changed. Something else popped up. All right, we're okay. I'm just going to carry on. The select board, when they were trying to put this together, I remember watching the videos for the select board, the board of select, I don't know who they called themselves then, but I remember the water commissioners, maybe just Todd. I don't know if the whole commission, I don't remember, but select board meetings were called and the water commissioners were really arguing for Dave to be the guy to, I think that what they were looking for is to put all the oversight responsibility on David. But what that did was, I'm going to have to go back. I may do another video. Again, I know I'm going to bore you to death with videos on this topic, but it's important to see what happened. That would be an interesting set of videos to see. Let's see, how did this happen? And to go back to the select board meetings where the board of selectmen had to appoint him as some responsible person in this. There were a lot of legal requirements in order to get grants and do the contracting, and both from the water regulators above and beyond Townsend to make sure that things were done properly. And there, I know, geez, about the contracting. And I got to go back. But anyway, I think that there's some negligence by town officials on, or this lack of oversight. It's basically, just to keep it simple, lack of oversight is what probably the biggest, other than the criminal activity. But we needed more oversight, and it wasn't there. And the water department keeps thinking of themselves as, and they get really pissed when anybody questions what they're doing. And we're independent. No, you're not. You maybe for something, certainly for taking care of our water, you're independent. Nobody can tell you how to do that. But if this thing, you're not independent unless you want the $1 million to come out of the ratepayers, which I certainly don't want. But this is a town-wide issue, and the town really screwed up in the lack of oversight. And this is where it's public officials being David, and then management liability does relate to not just the Board of Water Commissioners and David Vijan, he's a superintendent of the water department, but as well as the chief oversight board in the whole town is the Board of Selectmen, the select board. I always say it back, just bear with me. But the select board is the chief oversight. So all of that is management liability, all of it. And they failed. Everybody failed. And nobody, there's probably not anybody that really has a clear view of what the procurement laws. And I don't think everybody knew, and we still don't. I don't think all the paperwork is out on how the depth of some of the accusations. And the emails that David sent back and forth, and the communication that he had with Shepco and their subsidiary, I don't think the select board office really knew that those were happening, but I think that they didn't know that it was wrong. I know the Board of Selectmen still doesn't know it was wrong. Unless they've personally talked to the attorney. And I don't know, I know Veronica Kell usually argues with attorneys. I guess when she went to law school, which she didn't do, but but this is where it's management liability, oversight, and because it should have been stopped. What was happening, well, it never should have happened. But let's say management caught it, that these emails. Let's say our chief procurement officer said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You got to, what would have had to happen is that all those emails, anything that was given to Gary Shepard, Shepco, and the over something, he's got another company involved in there, over something, I can't remember, but they certainly not oversight, over under, I don't know, they're a drilling company, but those emails should have gone to the other bidders, if there were any other bidders, or even people, bidders conference type stuff, like people inquiring, because people get into bidders conferences and things, and they're just getting the RFP, they're asking questions, they're getting documents, because before they even, maybe they don't put in a bid, but everybody, all the potential bidders need to get all the same information, all of them. And even I'm not quite sure, after a bids are in, can there be more communication? I don't think so. There's probably exceptions, but whatever one bidder gets, the other bidder has to have. So this should have been caught. There should have been much more oversight in this. David should have known better. That's number one. And he's a public official and he's management, although he should not have ever had total oversight on this project. There should have been, everybody needs a supervisor, okay? We never, when you're talking about risk and fraud and money, and you always have to have, I don't care how trustworthy or honest you are, I don't care how much you trust your employees, I just don't give a hoot. And I'm not accusing anybody of being a crook on the outset. People get into things and they justify it, they rationalize it. This is the right thing. Somebody asked me a question, I'm going to tell them. They need to know that. Well, no, they can't know that. You can't. These communications are unlawful. And nobody was there to supervise this. And that's where things, and it just multiplied and multiplied and multiplied to where we are today. But anyway, the $1 million is our coverage limit. And this is probably a standard number. It's probably standard for municipalities of our size to have, and maybe that of all municipalities, I don't know. I suppose Boston might have more coverage than this. Certainly a bigger aggregate limit, but I mean, bigger buildings, bigger things, you probably need more than $1 million for each wrongful act, but I'm not sure. But this is probably a standard coverage limit for this kind of thing, for each wrongful act or offense, which this is. Got it? Don't argue with me, I'm right. So that's the coverage limit. And I think that the RFS, of course, knew that. I mean, they have lawyers putting this together. They're not just winging this. I think I'll just ask for $1 million. That's fair. They'll give it to me. I'll get that. If I ask for 25 million, they might not give it to me. But if I ask for $1 million, I'll get that. No, that is not how this works. When you're in multi-million-dollar businesses and large contracts like this and construction and all that, you got lawyers and they know what they're doing, unlike little towns like Townsend. So they sued us for the coverage limit, and that is, to me, makes perfect sense. That's all they're going to get. But what this also tells me, I'm going to come back and just, I'll just stare at you. You don't need to see this anymore, do you? Oh, I do need to. I'm going to put it back up in a minute. I'm going to put it back up because I'm going to show you something else. But the $1 million by this lawsuit, what they're asking is exactly what I've been saying. Settle. It's not a frivolous lawsuit. It's not a let's throw everything at the wall and see what happens lawsuit. I think it's very reasonable and easy. They don't have to, the insurance lawyers do not have to come up with this big, expansive plan. They don't have to lose any money other than the claim itself. But they have an absolute threshold here. They have the package. They know that there's not going to be any quibbling over the coverage limits. They can talk to the other lawyer and say, all right, what do you really want? What can we do? And just negotiate it down to maybe 500,000. I don't know, but it's not going to, when the liability insurance does this, it doesn't impact us. Our town budget is not going to be impacted by this, whatever number they come up with. It's their money. It's not ours. So that's why they sued. They filed a lawsuit for $1 million in my now decided mind, that because it's a coverage limit and it's standard, and it tells the other side, just settle. They're willing to settle. It's not, you guys figure out what you're doing. And whatever damage, this has public relations damage for Townsend. It has, the public is disturbed by this. It has political damage. It has whatever damage, probably minimal damage to Gary, but David is probably a total train wreck. And especially if he settled with his arm behind his back, which he probably, I don't think he's in agreement, but I think he settled with ethics. So there, it's an easy peasy settlement, and the insurance company won't spend a lot of time on it. They'll be, no insurance company wants to pay anything, but looking at the evidence, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that we screwed up and we got to pay. So the insurance company is going to be paying on this claim, and they just have to negotiate it down. I don't know how far down they'll get it, but it's not our problem. It's not our problem. It's the insurance company's problem, and they'll handle it wisely. I just am hoping that the Board of Selectmen has come to their senses since I last spoke to any of them about this, and and I have spoken to them, and my mind is still rattled by their ignorance, but that's how that goes. It's like another day in the select board office. I don't know, but they, yeah. I hope that they can, settle all that tomorrow night at their executive session to say, okay, the insurance company's going to do this, and this is the consequences to us. And it's none of the select board's business, really. This much about the ethics complaint, because the ethics complaint isn't against the whole town. The ethics complaint was originally against Gary and David. Gary settled. I say that because he told people he settled. David, I'm only saying by obviousness that I believe he's finally settled in the last week. And I I think since the lawsuit was filed, as I said before. And yeah, I got concerns about that. But we have the select board chasing whatever, getting, even they shouldn't even discuss some of this stuff in executive session, but they have a little bit of leeway to talk their own mind and opinion. They can chit chat. They can in an executive session. The minutes aren't going to it's not a transcript, so they can talk crap. They can say all day long how much they think this is all a frivolous lawsuit, but at the end of the day, they need to come up with a plan to deal with it appropriately, and that is to settle and to, well, it's not up to them at all. They just need to send it to liability insurance and let them handle it. It's not going to cost us more than this, except for one item, which I'm going to go over in a minute. But all the craziness, the ethics complaint is with the individuals involved. The town is not the defendant in, or the accused, or anything on the ethics complaint, unless the ethics complaints, there are ethics complaints about them, the board of selectmen. As far as I know, there aren't any, because this board was not seated. Veronica was on the board of selectmen before, but she's not. Well, I don't. Nobody's filed an ethics complaint against her, and the ethics commission that I know of, the ethics commission didn't do it on their own. So, this lawsuit could dredge up things. It's another reason to settle. There could be dredging of things that could come up, could have consequences. Oh, crazy comments. The lawsuit, yeah, the trial and the documents presented could have consequences for other people. So that's another reason to settle, but we won't go there. There may never be the serious filings. Because I'm going to keep saying it. I sound like a broken record. I know you're sick of me saying it, but when everybody settles, nothing is going to be. Those of us that are waiting for juicy documents to get filed in the court have a long wait. You have a long wait. The response to the lawsuit will need to be filed in court, I think, by the end of this week. So I'll be looking for that over the weekend, the latest. I'll probably check today too. I'll check every day. Now that there's a lawsuit, I'm going to keep working it. So, yeah. So they need to, get through this and get this settled. The ethics complaint has nothing to do with the lawsuit other than its evidence for the lawsuit. And it's the catalyst that caused the lawsuit to be, for the stuff to be exposed, but it's not part of it, which I think the select board gets confused about that. Because we can't represent David and Gary, but when it comes to the lawsuit, they're not the defendants, the town is. And that, I think that's hard for them to grasp. But hopefully they'll get that figured out. I'm hoping that Adam Costa's going to be at least on Zoom with them tomorrow night to go over that, but we shall find out. So there's one more thing. I'm going to bring us back up. Okay, if you notice, you probably noticed it before and I didn't mention it, but there's coverage A deductible, $25,000 for each wrongful act or offense. And the best I can certainly tell, excuse me, I need a sip of coffee here. There's only one lawsuit for $1 million. So that's only one wrongful act. This whole thing is in one package, okay? So we have one $25,000 deductible. Now, if the lawsuit comes in at $5,000, we pay the $5,000. But trust me, $1 million lawsuit is not going to get negotiated down to $5,000. It ain't happening. Doesn't matter. It will be above. The lawsuit settlement will be above $25,000. So the cost to the taxpayers, is $25,000. We will be paying that deductible. I would not. We probably do not have a budget line item for this, so this will show itself. This will rear its ugly head on town meeting floor. It will be whenever we're going to have a special town. Let's back up. Let me back up. The lawsuit, even in a negotiated, they're not going to settle this next week. Okay, it's months from now. Months from now, if not still. Even though I know that I want it to settle, and the insurance company is going to want it to settle. So I think, and they're going to be working towards that. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen quickly. It could still be a year from now. So as this proceeds, my hunch, and I would even suggest it, I do not know. I'd have to plow through our most recent town report and the last copy of the budget that I had, between which one got approved at town meeting, I have no idea. But whatever it is now, I'm going to have to look. I don't know that we have a liability line item that holds the money for something like this. The select board probably going to ask the FinCom for it, take it out of the reserve fund, which I would say to keep your friggin' hands off that. This is not FinCom reserve fund stuff. You could ask, but if I were on the FinCom, I would be pounding my fist on the table. No. We need to have a special town meeting and move the money from somewhere else, but not the FinCom reserve fund. This is not what it should be used for. But what I would want to see, somehow, we need to get, at some point, as we approach a special, or definitely when we get to annual town meeting, and the select board needs to right now start looking at a budget for next year already. This is a constant thing. We need to have a line item for this. Not always. Needs to be a standard line item. We need to be protected on insurance deductibles for liability. If there's nothing already there, if we don't have, we may have something, and we just kind of don't even pay attention to it in town meeting. It's just kind of wrapped into insurance payments, because we do have line items for that, and we don't usually get all flustered about it. in town meeting, there's things budgeted for health insurance for the employees, the liability coverage. Do you know this policy is over $200,000 to pay the payment? Imagine, wow, because it covers it doesn't just cover criminal acts by town employees. It covers accidents. You know, somebody's driving a highway snowplow and hits somebody and kills them while they're plowing snow. The lawsuit, we need, we have insurance for that, and it's this policy. The liability. I could be a little off on, but anyway. Don't get me going on something I don't know what I'm talking about. But but we need to have. There should be, and there may be, a line item that has money in it that provides for something like this, because we do have insurance. We do have things happen that are smaller than this, not lawsuit material, but there's deductibles. We have other insurance. I mean, other than getting sued for this, we need to have, police get into accidents sometimes. Fire department gets into accidents. The water department. Anybody that's doing town business in a vehicle, even if it's your own, you're doing town business. So from time to time, there's deductibles associated. So, and it's minor if it's just a routine thing. Your average citizen wouldn't even know about it, which is okay. We don't have to have a fine tooth comb on every single penny here. That goes in general pots. It's perfectly fine. But we need to have, if this isn't a line item in the budget, we need to put it there. And we should consider, if there's a plan, it maybe free cash. No, free cash if the settlement's already there. And if we've already settled, then I would be okay with taking $25,000 from free cash. If it has not settled, I would just leave it alone. And if we don't have the money, fine. If there's still, we can make it to town meeting. We can get to town meeting and into July of next year at a minimum. I mean, I'm kind of speculating on a few things here because we may have the money already set aside in accounts. That's possible that it's been sitting there for years. But if we don't, and the settlement hasn't occurred, and everybody has a reason to drag their feet on this, there is no hurry to settle this as long as we all understand that that's the goal and nobody screws that up. But that we can push this out to next year's budget and then make sure we make a line item in our budget that provides for deductibles on something like this. We should have a deductible account so that I would want 50,000 in there, because no, something else could happen. Hopefully not as big as this, but different things can happen, and you want to be covered. You want to have at least most of it available to you. So between 25 and 50,000 should be in a line item for liability insurance deductibles. And there's each action for injunctive. That's something else. But I'm not worried about the 25,000. We don't like it. Nobody has to like it, but it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket compared to $1 million. We have to come up with $1 million. No, insurance is going to pay that. We, the taxpayers, have to pay 25,000 for the deductible on this coverage. Not a problem, unless we don't have it. We don't have to pay it. Even though we get the bill, I mean, the lawyers can negotiate that. The deductible would go to the plaintiff, not the insurance company. So I wouldn't worry about it. I'm not worried about it, as long as we do take action that we'd need to. But if the insurance company drags your feet and gets this thing kicked out till late late spring, to where we're talking, okay, we can kick this over to the next fiscal year. Actually, well, then we get into when was the liability incurred. That's another conversation for the accountants and the town council on how we can assign this debt once, because we don't have the debt yet until the settlement comes. So I'd want to see I want to see the liability council settle on July 2nd, July 1st or 2nd, so that the liability won't be incurred until the fiscal year 2027, which we're in 2026 right now, the following year, because then we can put it in our budget, and everybody can figure out how that will fit in. But I have no problem, other than the obvious, but that's nothing. I'm not happy that we have this lawsuit, but the 25,000 is a drop in the bucket. Whatever, it's cheaper than any other consequence that could come of this, that could cost the town much more. So I think that this lawsuit has been reduced in my mind to the problem. As long as the Board of Selectmen have a handle on this and understand that they need to make sure the liability council has it, and that they're going to take care of it, okay, and that they're going to settle, and that's the whole point of the lawsuit, is RFS wants the settlement, and this has legs. This is a real live wrongful act by our town, and we just need to settle. But I've changed my tune a little to kick it down the road because we don't have. I don't know that we have the money. But that's for the 25,000. But it's not that bad. But this is one of those things that it's a public relations nightmare. The townspeople should be really angry, and I'm pretty sure they are. There's some people that think that I'm nuts. I'm making this up. I'm a liar. Somebody called me a liar the other day. I'm like, I'm not making this up here. This is a real thing. And we're really liable. It's a real problem. They screwed up. I don't care what anybody says. And that's how it's going to go. And they're not going to just settle to make it go away. They are settling to make it go away. And it's cheaper. And we need to do that. Okay? It's not because of some illegitimate reason. We need to settle because we're in the wrong. Okay? Do you care? Probably not. So that's my story for this update. I got a couple more videos. I might, what is it? It's after 3:00. Holy cow, where'd the day go? Okay. So that's I don't know how many updates I've done on this lawsuit. There will be more, I promise you. And I will bring them to you as soon as I can, once I have the information myself. So everybody have a good day. I'm going to end this a little short of my usual time, a whole 40, almost 44 minutes. How about that? Record time. Okay. Where's the music? Bring Maestro back. Here we go.